never shy away to use soft power diplomacy, because very often people smile about it, but it's not. It's a long-term bridge-building exercise or process, and you can see the results of that. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Mr. President, thank you very much for inviting us. Mr. Undersecretary General, it's great to see you. Yes, I missed the UN in New York, but I'm still around. And Mr. Mayor, you have an amazing city. I was told yesterday by your president, whoever comes here once, it will be not the last one. So looking forward to continuing these visits. And thank you very much, Mark, for inviting me again. It's like being totally, utterly inspired by all our discussions and by the amazing panelists and lecturers here, but mainly by the audience. I must say that the whole theme of our discussion is something very close to my heart, because yes, I've been serving my country, but in a way the world or humanity, whatever chapeau I was having on, in the multilateral scene. And I think that, yes, sometimes still the only platform. So we can always talk about the need of the reform process, the end of the UN, and so on and so on. Okay, but what's instead of that? So we have platforms, multilateral platforms, where we have to go in, ambassadors are meeting each other, the diplomats are meeting each other, we are sitting at the same table, even when the countries are not talking with each other, the politicians are not talking with each other, or when, you know, they are in war with each other. So these platforms are, I think, very, very important. Just lately, we actually celebrated the International Day of Peace, and I want just to say that the theme of 2024 of the International Day of Peace was cultivating a culture of peace. And here I am at my territory, which is mainly soft power diplomacy, because 25 years ago, when we decided to have this amazing program, the Culture of Peace, you know, it was decided at the United Nations, but actually UNESCO has been dealing with the series of programs and putting together the deeper understanding of the culture of peace worldwide. We really have to realize that the culture of peace is not something what is there per se, but we really have to work on that every day. And what I made just some notes, what I want to touch today very quickly. For me, if I want to talk about this topic, comes to my mind 4 very important ingredients or actors in this topic. And one ingredient is the role of women in peace building, in building peace, understanding, and just referring to you, Mr. Minister, when women are invited to the table of the negotiation tables, and they insist on both sides putting the important topics into the document, then it can work. But I was told in many parts of the world that they had the trust, they had the promises, but it was not put into the paper. And after they made the deal, the peace agreement, no one really dealt seriously, for example, with the topics what the women thought was very important. And I also learned this from Betty Williams, who was a Nobel Peace Prize laureate in 1977 in Northern Ireland. Wonderful woman. And she told me, peace is action and not words. Very much related to what the president of Malta was talking about. Yes, so obviously here are very distinguished politicians who have been doing the work, the action. It's not enough to just talk about that. But I think really the cause of empowering women to take leading roles in the positive social transformations towards peace is especially very important. And I don't believe that this job has been done. So I would like very much to propose here, I see great young women leaders in the audience. Never forget your journey, and never forget the journey which is waiting still for other women and other girls. And whenever you do something, remember in the UN we say, we do it together, you know, we step it up together, we race for each other. So never forget that. It's not obvious everywhere in the world. So it's not done yet. So I think leadership is, of course, often defined within the sphere of politics, but I think many women have been doing it anyway in their territories, in their fields. I've been, for example, in Colombia, and I met many women who have been very vocal in the peace processes, and they've been doing it in their communities, in their villages, and also at the negotiating table. So it can work, and you know, your voice is needed, and your voice should be heard. Going back to the institutions, the United Nations Security Council had this very important resolution, that's the famous 1325 resolution, Women, Peace and Security, which has been going on, discussing, using. Very many peace negotiators are using it, having it in their hands. I've seen it. The UN said that we agreed on that. Please let us have our space in the negotiations. So I think the potential, the knowledge, the talent of women in fostering peace and nurture reconciliation is something what we all have to work on and take it into consideration. The second point I want to do is the role of art. I very much believe that art in a way can empower us and can save us. Why do I say that? Because it can save us because through doing and absorbing it, we can transform ourselves into compassionate beings. And that is really something what art can do. For example, just lately, for the International Day of Peace, I invited women ambassadors in Hungary. Often, they were in war or not in diplomatic relations with each other, and I asked them to bring a piece by a women artist of their country and bring a poem by a woman poet of their country. And we presented all this together. And at the end of the day, we saw the common ground. We were, in a way, deeply, very often talking about similar things, wishes, and desires. And of course, art has got a very important role because it makes us daring, very often more daring than in our normal everyday life. So use it. If you do soft power diplomacy, use art. It's a strong platform. Now in Hungary, we are organizing a big program for artists from tormented areas, coming together, working together. Every little piece of negotiation and looking for common ground can help us in that. And yes, art can save us because it elucidates a path towards peaceful coexistence. Thirdly, we talked about the importance of cooperation. It is not so obvious. I was told many often in my career as a diplomat when I was talking about the importance of dialogue that, yeah, but I am in dialogue. And I said, so what do you mean? You know, for me, dialogue is that we all listen to each other and probably have the capacity to change our way of thinking or our standpoint. And this very ambassador told me, he said, well, dialogue for me is that I'm talking and you are listening. So it's, again, not a finished business. We have to work on that, what dialogue really is, and that's really the starting point for cooperation. And I think through the culture bridge building, looking for countries where it works very well, we can start or assist the hard work, very often, of politicians. And I don't really want to overlook that most societies have also tremendous indigenous knowledge, actually, how to live together. That's another thing. Why don't we look into that? Very often it happens. We know it happens. So go into that. For example, I'm a European, but a very great supporter of Ubuntu as a philosophy because it really defines the person, someone who belongs to a community. And in Europe especially, we are very slowly forgetting about the community. And I want to say, of course, Hungary has always been a great supporter of you entering the European Union, because we believe in that kind of dialogue, and we really remember the times when we had this aspiration and how important it was also in our life. And lastly, I would like to emphasize the importance of education. Probably we don't have enough time to talk about that, but I think it's a great thought. What I read, that in the long course of history, having people who understand your thought is much greater in security than another submarine. And of course, it was Mr. Fulbright, and he is right. That's why it is so important to give scholarships by the governments. That's why it's so important you all to apply to as many scholarships, as many you can. We are also offering the Stipendium Hungaricum, and that's amazing that we have all these foreign students from all over the world mingling with each other, learning about each other, and when you are having scholarships, you know, you are really going through your own borders and building the bridges in long term. So education is something what should be taken seriously. That's why the programs of UNESCO in the international collaborations on the field of education culture, not to talk about science or communication, are so important. So I just would like to say to the students here or the young leaders, never shy away to use soft power diplomacy, because very often people smile about it, but it's not. It's a long-term bridge building exercise or process, and you can see the results of that. Thank you very much. Thank you.